Hi, so one of the quick videos I'd like to do for our channel is to be able to show you how to make chicken and dumplings. I learned this from my mom, and I think she makes the best, and I've tried to make it like she does, so I thought we would go through. It's really very easy, and so what I've got right here is chicken broth and cream of chicken soup and butter and black pepper, and that just makes your broth or the base. This was really one box of chicken broth. Usually I make my own, which I might show you how to do in another video, but I don't have any, and so this was just a big box, and actually 2 cans of cream of chicken because I thought it needed one more. Usually I only do one, but that made a lot more broth. And then just 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter and just black pepper. All right, and so the actual dumplings I have right here, and I'm trying to make a bigger pot because we eat all of these up so quick. So in here is flour, self-rising flour. It was probably about 2 cups, maybe not quite, but almost 2 cups of flour, and maybe 1/2 stick butter, 1/2 of a stick of butter. And then, so I'm just stirring it up, just trying to cut the butter into the flour. And once you do that, takes a minute. And I already have a cutting board out here, so in a minute I'm gonna sprinkle some flour on there, and we'll just roll out this is basically my biscuit dough, which I guess I could show you in another video. And so basically this is flour and self-rising flour and butter, and then I'm gonna make, like I said, this is my biscuit dough recipe, so it's just gonna be like what I would use if I was mixing up biscuits. So I just poured milk in there, and I don't have any measurements. This is just pouring until you have a pretty, stiff dough that you can kind of spoon out, or we're gonna roll it out, so you don't want it too thin. I'm supposed to keep talking, but I don't know what to talk about. We love chicken and dumplings. It's kind of like one of those comfort food things for us. I make them a lot, actually. So I've stirred the dough up, and you can kind of see how it's just kind of a thick, biscuity dough. It's not real thin at all. And I'm going to put flour on the cutting board and roll out about one half of that at a time. With milk before I spilled milk. So I'm going to do about half of this dough out onto the cutting board. And I kind of flour it really good because it needs to be kind of thick, or if you don't flour it really good, if you make things with just dough a lot, you'll know it's really sticky. But this is just what I do, just kind of knead it a little bit, and then I have my rolling pin out, but actually I don't usually even use it. I didn't think about that. I was thinking of something different when I was getting all my stuff out, but I just usually do this because it can be kind of thick. You're not rolling it out, you're not having to get it out really thin. And I've got to get a knife now. So after you do that, you're really just waiting on this to be boiling. It needs to be boiling pretty good. I make it also, this is really important. This is a really thick, heavy pot. It's like enameled cast iron, and so if you tried it like in just a regular stainless steel pot that wasn't a very thick pot, then they would stick really, really bad. So if you have anything that's really thick, and I bought that really just for that purpose, like soups, with cream and cheese and everything. And if you ever cook those kind of soups, you know how badly it will stick. So anyway, if you have a thick pot, then that is really good. And you want it to be boiling. This is almost boiling. And you can make, you know, as many dumplings as will go in there. So there's really, I don't have any, you know, measurements that would say like how much dumplings per how much broth mixture you have. So it would just, I like a lot of broth. Adam doesn't like broth, so that evens out. Usually Turner doesn't like a lot of broth, and Mary Carol does, so it evens out in our family. But if you know, if you wanted all of yours to be really thick, then you know you just have to adjust it as you go. This is not a real. All right, so here's how I do the actual dumplings. This was just flour, milk, and butter. Flour and butter that I stirred up and then add milk until it got to be the right. And this is kind of messy and sticky. I just kind of actually try to go that way. There might be a better knife. This is just the way I do it. But if I just pulled it, it would just pull the whole, it would pull it out. So I'm kind of like sawing like that way a little bit. But there's not, it won't really matter. Some people actually roll theirs into little balls. That might be what traditional dumplings are, but this is just a quick, and they're very messy. They're not going to be neat, but you know when they cook, they'll puff up, and you won't be able to tell. It won't matter that they're all messy when you cut them up like this. And this is really the hardest part, actually. This takes a little bit of time. You get flour everywhere, your hands get messy, but this is the hardest part. Now, and here is why dumplings are dumplings, because you just dump them in your boiling broth. That's actually why they're called that. Well, that's why I think. I think that's why they're called that. That makes sense to me anyway. You can make these, sometimes people like to do them in long strips, long thin strips. I've heard of people actually using flour tortillas to use for dumplings. I think I've eaten those, I've never made those, but I couldn't see it beating this right here. So, and this is actually really fun. The kids used to love to come and do this. They would watch me mix them up, and then 2 or 3 at a time, we would just take turns putting them in there, and they thought that was so fun. You know, and I have to tell them to be careful because if it splashes on you, it's hot liquid, but they loved to do this. And this is the fun part about making dumplings is this. We have a messy part, we have an easy part, and a messy part, and this is the fun part. So surely someone in the family would like one part of this process. You probably know who it might be in your family. Now, my mom used to tell me that the #1 mistake people make when they cook dumplings is that they want to stir too much. So you don't want to stir. And she also said, and this is what's hard, I'm making quite a bit, but if you see the bubbles, like where it's bubbling, that's obviously a place to where you can see how it just fell in there. But after you put enough in there, obviously you run out of room, especially on the second batch that I'll be making in a minute. You run out of room, and so you basically just start just popping them anywhere. But you don't want to stir. This part, this time right here, you do not want to stir it at all. So even if you feel like you need to scoop some over, even if you have to do that, you'd need to be very careful and probably not do that if you didn't have to. And I'll show you, how to stir in just a minute. These are really messy. This part got really messy. All right, so I haven't done anything with that until the last dumpling I put in there, and while they were doing their thing, I could have, sometimes you can put the lid on too, they'll cook just a little bit better, but so I went ahead and, poured out the rest of the dough, and I tried to Spread it out just the same way I did the other. And now here's what I was saying about stirring. I haven't stirred it yet, but when you do, you just be really gentle, because some of these, you know, it's just soft bread, and you don't want to break them apart. Some of them, I should have put the lid on when usually I do, and you just kind of gently stir them over. Let them cook like that. You don't stir too much, just very, very gently. And then we'll go ahead and put the rest of the dumplings in. And so I put the second batch in there, and I haven't stirred again. I just stirred it once before I put that little second round of dumplings in. And I'm just gonna leave it. And the pot, well, because it's not a very thick pot, they've never stuck. So I've got it turned down to medium, and I'm just gonna let them kind of hang out in there for a little bit. And I'm not gonna worry about it. Now here's the chicken. You can use any kind of chicken. You can use leftover chicken. A lot of times I'll do that if I, roast a chicken, the leftover after we've eaten, I'll save, take the rest of it off the bone, and that's the chicken I'll use in there. You could use canned chicken if you wanted to do that, or you could cook a couple of chicken breasts, before just for this, but I hardly ever make chicken just for that. I usually wait until I have some chicken left over from roasted chicken. This is actually frozen. We had our teens in the Word, and the lady who made the food that night left the chicken with me, because she said, you can just keep that. So I froze it, and this is a chicken, even if it's frozen. I'm gonna just dump it in there and let it heat. And you could probably pop it in and thaw it in the microwave, but I don't do that just because I just don't do that. And it'll be easy and quicker. And I'll put the lid back on there in a minute. I'm letting these cook for just a second. They're probably getting close. I would say total, you want them, you can tell I haven't stirred since the top. Total, these are probably gonna need to cook for about, total, since the first one in there, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. They just need to kind of puff up a little bit. So I'm gonna stir it very gently again. Just kind of fold them over and let them get coated with the broth good, and keep the lid on for a few minutes. We're gonna let them cook maybe about 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna add the chicken in there. All right, so now I'm gonna add the chicken. Once again, this is the frozen chicken. I really think it'll be fine. It's already, of course, cooked. And so I'm just gonna sprinkle it on there, let it thaw. This cooking, you can tell I'm a real high maintenance cook here. Easy and good is what I like. So I actually like dumplings. My favorite way to eat them is without the chicken. But Adam he loves the chicken in his. So I do it for him. I'm not gonna I don't like a whole, I'm just gonna add just a little bit. That's good. And I don't know how much I add in there. Probably 2 cups of chicken, maybe. 2 cups of chicken. All right, so then I'm gonna try to stir one more time just so that gets down in there, and then since it's already shredded up, it's not gonna take it very long. I'll put the lid back on, and it'll do its thing. So we'll kind of recap this whole process of chicken and dumplings. This is always so good and homey and hearty. So start with your chicken broth, and this was just store-bought. I usually make my own, and it really is better. I have to say, it tastes a little different and just more rich, but start with your broth, a can of cream of chicken soup or 2, just kind of personal preference, how creamy you really want it, or how much broth you used, and then some butter, 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter, and some black pepper, and that makes your base. And then the dough for your dumplings is, for when I make it, I'm just using self-rising flour and butter, maybe half a stick of butter, and milk. And it's just kind of like making a biscuit. That's how I make biscuits. That's what my biscuit dough is. So Just stir it up really good, and then you saw how, you know, spread it out and then cut it in just little bits, and you put maybe 1/2 of your dough in there, and don't stir a lot, just don't stir at all for a while. Put the lid on, and then while you roll the other dough out, it'll cook, and then you can add those. You stir and then add the rest of the dumplings, and just kind of let it do that. And then the chicken comes in really toward the end. Of course, I'm gonna probably let that cook just a little bit longer since this was cold and frozen, but if you've made your chicken, or if it's coming straight from the can, the chicken is just, you really only have to let it go for 2 or 3 more, no more than 5 minutes, just as long as the chicken is kind of heated through. But this will take just a little bit longer. Okay, so that chicken has really only been in there for probably 5 minutes total, even though it's frozen and it's already thawed, because it was, you know, little bits of shredded chicken. So this is what it looks like after they're done. And sometimes I will taste one just to make sure that they, I mean, really, it doesn't take them long at all though. So by the time, if you've let them kind of boil for maybe total 15 to 20 minutes after, while you're even including all that, they're usually really good, especially if you've kept the lid on. So now I'm going to get a bowl. So I hope a lot of my videos will be things like this, and we'll, you know, how to make something or some kind of homemaking thing. And so if you really want to follow our channel, then hit the like button, and we'll be able to come back one day and learn how to make something else. So I'm gonna get my favorite without a lot of chicken in there. And that's what that looks like. And they're gonna be extra steamy. I'm gonna turn that down. That one in here. You can see me eat.